Hey guys and gals, Putter from DNA Plays here, and today I'm going to be showing you the Fluffal deck that I use in Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. We're going to go through all the cards and explain what they do and why they're in the deck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe to the channel for more, and without further ado, let's jump right into this deck profile. Alright, starting with the first card, we have Fluffal Cat. When he's used as fusion material, you get to recycle the polymerization, and we run one copy of him. One Fluffal Rabbit. When he's used as fusion material, you can pull an Edge Imp Sabers or another Fluffal monster from your graveyard to your hand. Then we have Fluffal Wings. We run 3 of those. He is used to get Toy Vendor's ability. When he's in the graveyard and Toy Vendor's on the field, you can banish him and another Fluffal to draw a card, and then another card, and then you can use him to also destroy Toy Vendor. So he does a lot of Toy Vendor interactions, which is really good. Then we run 3 copies of Fluffal Owl. He can act as a polymerization, and he can get polymerization from your deck to your hand. Then we run 2 King of the Swamp. This is just to take the place of Sabers, and in case we need to pull a polymerization. Then we run 2 Edge Imp Sabers. That lets us make our Wolf and our Tiger. And he also has a good ability from the graveyard that lets you summon him from the graveyard. 2 copies of Fluffal Bear. You can discard it from your hand to set Toy Vendor straight from your deck. So another Toy Vendor interaction card to get Toy Vendor out as quickly as possible. We run 3 Ash Blossoms. Standard hand trap, you know, just being able to stop your opponent from doing things is always good. We have 3 Edge Imp Scythe. You can use that as a polymerization on your opponent's turn as a quick effect from your hand. And also, if it's in the graveyard, you can stop one of your Fight for monsters from being destroyed. One of your Fight for Fusion monsters from being destroyed. Then we have 3 Fluffal Dogs. When the dog's summoned, you get to pull an Edge Imp Sabers or another Fluffal monster, so he just lets you pull more cards to your hand that you might need. There are 2 copies of Edge Imp Chain. When he's sent to the graveyard, you get to add a Frightfur card from your deck to your hand, so we would use that to get Frightfur Fusion or a Frightfur Patchwork, whichever one we would be in more need of. And then finally for the monsters, 1 Fluffal Penguin. When it's used as a fusion material, you get to draw 2 cards and discard a card, so it gives you a little bit of a card advantage there. For spell cards, we have 1 Raigeki. If you can nuke your opponent's field, you might as well. 3 copies of Polymerization. That's basic fusion spell. You have to fuse a lot in this deck. 1 copy of Foolish Burial. That is typically used to send Sabers to the graveyard or Wings to the graveyard, depending on the situation. If Toy Vendor's on the field, I would send Wings to the graveyard. 1 copy of Fright for Fusion. We only run this at 1 because Chain can pull it from the deck, so we only need 1. And it just lets you use your field and graveyard and banish them to fusion summon. We run 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, and that lets us discard Toy Vendor from our deck. And that makes it to where its effect pops off straight from the deck without ever having to play it or mess with it or anything. So it gets Toy Vendor's effect, which is really good. Then we run 3 Frightfur Patchworks, and that lets us add an Edge Imp and a Polymerization card from our deck to our hands. And then 3 Toy Vendors, which is once per turn you can discard a card and draw a card. And if it's a Fluffal monster, you can summon it. If not, you discard it. I end up discarding a lot of cards with it, but you can discard another Toy Vendor using its ability to, and it'll pop that Toy Vendor off that you discarded. You can also use it to discard Wings. That's a good combo. Discard Wings, and then it doesn't matter what you draw, you're going to get to draw more cards anyway. Then in our extra deck, we have Frightfur Sheep. You have to use Chain and 1 other Fluffal monster. Typically do not summon him. I use him just as a fodder for Whale's ability, usually. Then you have the Wolf. The Wolf will come in handy. He comes in handy a lot. You need sabers and then one or more Fluffal monsters, and for each fusion material that you use to summon him, he can attack one time. So if you can get him on an empty field with just 4 fusion materials, you can win the game. Theoretically, on paper. Always sounds good. Then we're going to run 2 Frightfur Tigers. You have to use sabers and Fluffal monsters for him, and for each fusion material that you use, you get to destroy a card on the field. So he can come out and wipe the entire field. Then we have a Frightfur Sabertooth. When he's fusion summoned, you get to target a fusion Frightfur monster in your graveyard and special summon it. And as long as you use more than 3 or 3 or more fusion materials, he can't be destroyed by battle either. Then we have Frightfur Daredevil. This is usually the first one that I'll summon on my turn, just because it's got the highest and it's one of the easier ones to summon because you only need 1 and 1. 1 Edgent monster, 1 Fluffal monster. When it destroys an opponent's monster, it deals 1,000 points of damage, and if it leaves the field, is destroyed by a card effect or battle, it inflicts 500 damage for each Frightfur monster in my graveyard, so it can stack up pretty good. Then we have Frightfur Cruel Whale. When he is fusion summoned, you can choose to destroy a card on both sides of the field, which doesn't sound great, but if you have Toy Vendor out, you can target your Toy Vendor and destroy it, and then you pop its effect, and it's an optional effect, so you don't have to use it anyway when he's summoned. His second effect is once per turn you can discard you can send to the graveyard 1 Frightfur monster in your extra deck, and then you target a monster on the field and it gains attack equal to half of the attack of the monster you sent. So he's good for boosting up the other Frightfurs and getting them powered up. I also failed to mention that both Tiger and Sabertooth have boosts too. Sabertooth gives 400 attack, and the Tiger gains, or all Frightfur monsters gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster that you control, and Frightfur monster. So they have attack point boost too. And then finally, the last card in the deck is Dangerous Frightfur Nightmare. She requires 1 Edgent monster and 2 Fluffal monsters, but she gains 300 attack points for each fiend or fairy in the graveyard, which every single Fluffal and Edgent is either a fiend or a fairy. If she battles and she destroys a card, you can send from your deck as many Fluffals as many Fluffal cards as what the monster's level is. So for example, if I kill a Blue Eyes with it, I get to send 8 Fluffals from my deck to my graveyard, which powers her up by 800 more points. But that only works on your turn. Her effect does not work on your opponent's turn. If an effect activates that targets her, I can discard a Frightfur card from my extra deck and negate it. So she's a good negate as well. All in all, the Fluffals are a pretty fun little deck to play. It's amazing that the little stuffed animals can turn into these big evil monsters and kill people very, very quickly. They get a lot of points on the field. They spam the field with these fusions. Usually, if I go second, usually I can get 4 of them out, which is usually I'll summon Daredevil, and then I'll summon the Sabertooth, which lets you summon the Daredevil back, and then I'll summon the Whale, and then I'll summon Nightmare. Depending on the situation, sometimes you might throw Tiger in there just to field wipe if you can, if you pull Sabers or King of the Swamp. But all in all, it's a really fun deck. It's not the best deck, I'm sure, but it is fun to play, and they're so cute, the little Fluffals. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe to the channel for more, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.